So I've wondered about this because I've heard about a pastor give his a little spiel about what happened during those 400 years. And sometimes when I tell people that, I get a little iffy feeling and I'm like, is it not necessarily true? And I don't know, and what he said is basically there's 400 years, or just it didn't really, I don't know. What he had said is, these 400 years, God stopped speaking, and people are like, is there anything we can do? And then they basically, I feel like not even to say what the pastor said. I don't know why. But what did ended up happening, apparently, is, there's different. Actually, I'm just going to say what I can remember from what I just watched. So there's a few prophecies. There's a prophecy in Daniel that's like there's this ram, this goat that attacked a ram, and that all predicted rise and falls of empires throughout what Daniel prophesied. And that particular one like predicted like Alexander the Great, rise of and fall of like Rome and all these other stuff. And during that time, Jews, they like started doing some stuff, and then there's a bunch of other stuff going on. You have Alexander the Great kind of conquested all of whatever, even Jerusalem stuff, and then the Jews themselves, they were like started splitting off into different sects. They had no one to tell them what God wanted, and what my pastor had said is basically they just were like, hey, let's try to add a bunch of laws to what we already have. Like, let's try to go above and beyond, and then maybe we'll hear something. And that's what they basically did. And then finally Jesus came and he's like, you guys added so much to my word. Like, and you all don't even do it. So then what in this video, so what they did, you had the Sadducees, Pharisees, this, that. I think there's some maybe others, but those are the two main ones, and they're like pretty much the lead. And then you had Rome conquering everything, and now they're spreading Greek everywhere. God is apparently preparing the way for him. Greek's the language. Now Hebrews are translating their own Bible into Greek, because everyone has to speak Greek. That's the common language. If you want to buy, sell, basically talk to anyone throughout the empire, it's it was basically like whatever language you have today. So now we've got all that going on, and now we can talk to people in different places, and they're building roads everywhere so that people can travel, and basically preparing a way. And I'm not getting everything like perfect, but basically what I'm trying to say, God was still there, like doing things. Just because he didn't speak, but he was like still doing things. He was getting everything ready. And then eventually I don't know if there's more. They talked about stuff like what Herod and what he did. I forget it exactly, all the, like, I don't know. But there was Herod and stuff that he started doing. And he was basically like, I want to cement myself into history, even added on to the temple and this and that. And then he gets this word that, oh, there's a Messiah, being a king is somehow over here. And, before that happened, God spoke. And I never thought of this, because personally, maybe still, anyway, as someone who is fully delusional, when I thought I was going to be, the Messiah, I had that whole little delusion going on. And I met a bunch of other people who thought they were the Messiah. And I read about that's like a common delusion, and you get put on drugs if you want to tell someone. Did not know that. Anyways, that started a whole little thingy wingy. But anyways, so yeah, like what I come to the conclusion is, if you're gonna be telling people something like John the Baptist, like all I kind of like thought of as far as John the Baptist goes, as far as like proving the Messiah, is if you're truly like this crazy person out of your mind, out in the wilderness, eating honey locusts and doing whatever, speaking again, you're going to call yourself the Messiah. You're not going to be out there like, guys, the Messiah's going to come, and a voice in my head told me that a dove is going to descend on him, and I'm going to tell you all when I see that. Like, I mean, that's like that's personally, that's like what I feel like is almost proof of what John the Baptist, like a crazy person is going to call him this, and he's like, no, guys, I'm literally nothing. Another thing, get you put on drugs, tell people you're a prophet. He was like, no, guys, I'm not a prophet. I'm not that prophet. I don't know. He said I'm not a prophet. People, anyways, I'm not the prophet. I'm not the Messiah, but I'll tell you when he gets here. You know, that's kind of, I don't know. That's what I thought of going into that. And then there's that whole, he did have the vision that a voice in his head told him was going to happen. And then this guy ends up healing the world, healing all the sick, raising the dead, and, you know, preach. And so, but what I just heard in this movie is something I didn't really think about. The first time that God spoke in 400 years was to Zechariah. We haven't had any angels speaking to people, God not speaking through people to other people. That angel, first time in 400 years, goes to Zechariah, this old man. I should probably look in how old. I imagine at least 60 or 80, 85, I forget. And he's like, hey, your wife is going to have a son. And I forget all the other stuff. And basically he's going to be this really great guy, and the Holy Spirit's going to be with him ever since inside of the womb. And I think it says he's going to make way for the Messiah. I forget. Don't quote me on that. And basically, I think it does say that. He's going to like do something about leading people back to God, or even preparing for God to come down. And Zechariah hears this. Oh, my 70-ish year old wife, 60-something year old wife is going to have a kid. And he's like, yeah, that's not happening. How's that going to, are you sure?